Take Two with Jerry and Debbie starts now.
Hi there, welcome. It is Monday's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. I am Jerry Usher, along with Debbie Georgiani and the show team. That would be Michael, Jeff, and Ryan. And you. You are the one who makes the show what it is each and every day, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern Time, with a replay, an encore of that day's show at midnight every night Eastern Time. Debbie, hope you had a good weekend, you and Marty.
We did. Second week of Advent. I love it. Second Sunday of Advent. Jerry, speaking of that, of Advent, in July 1st, we asked folks to step up and be part of the intense prayer and fasting group from July 1st to January 1st. And over 1,000 folks, I think it was like 1,400 folks, stepped up and said they would be part of it. Well, remember, we're on the final weeks of this. We finish on January 1st. So a lot of us, Jerry included, I've taken it on a couple days ago. We're going to go into a real big fasting mode to finish the end of this prayer and fasting to heal our country. What's everything that's been happening in this world, so many things, the offenses to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of Mary, for reparation of that, so many things. I mean, just to really go into 2021 in a great way. So if you haven't stepped up July 1st, join us now for just a really intense finish to this prayer and fasting group. I'm taking it on, Jerry, 110%.
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly invite anyone who is listening to do that. Even if you hadn't heard about this effort that we kind of kicked off in July, it was Debbie and I just thought, so many things were going on. Like Debbie mentioned, the healing of our country. We had the pandemic going on, the contentious political strife, and so many other things. Families really suffering greatly. A lot of addiction, alcoholism, divorces, suicides. It's just been a year to forget, to be honest with you. But we want to kind of send it on its way with a little bit more of an intense prayer and fasting period. So please feel free to join us with that. It's nothing. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. Debbie, you may know exactly what you're going to do.
I have mine planned out already.
But yeah, the point is, if anyone would like to join in on this, do what you're capable of doing. Okay, we don't necessarily want to go into a life of prayer and fasting like a cloistered monk or a cloistered religious sister, who pray every 3 hours, eat bread and water several days a week, things like that. Do what you're capable of doing. And God, Debbie, I believe God will accept every small sacrifice.
Absolutely. Anything that we can do by way of sacrifice to repair for all the damage, I think goes a long way with our God. And so that's the news that we have for you today, that we're finishing this prayer and fasting 6-month group in just a very, very strong way. Please join us, like Jerry said, any which way you can. It's informal. Nobody's keeping tabs on everybody else. Just please take it on if you can. But that leads us right into today's show, which is our monthly show in the news. And what do we mean by that? Well, we know that the headline news that we get all the time from our the mainstream media, all those, about the COVID deaths and what's happening with lockdowns and what's happening with the election and post-election, everything, right? And the new Biden, cabinet and stuff like that. We're hearing all that. But there's a lot of news that kind of flies under the radar. Maybe something in your local area that is very important. Maybe something, international that hasn't been really focused on. Something maybe in the Christian world, the Catholic world, that the news media just says, that doesn't interest everybody. Well, if you've come across one of these articles or one of these latest news blurbs, if you will, and you feel it's of interest to the Take Two family, please call in and share the story with us. Okay, that's how we're trying to get these stories highlighted when the mainstream media chooses to maybe overlook them or even ignore them. So the number to dial to share the news story that really caught your eye is 833-288-3986. That's the number to call to share the story. I hope I Explain that, okay?
You set it up beautifully, and the thing is, it could be really anything. It doesn't have to be something that happened just on your street or in your neighborhood. It could be in your city, in your state. It could be something like, I just learned this morning that Pope Francis is going to break his 15-month hiatus in international travel and go to Iraq in March of 2021. Folks, that is big news. He is hoping to be a presence for peace and stability between Iraq, inside Iraq, and with Iraq's neighbors and allies and foes and so forth. So let's keep Pope Francis in our prayers heading into that March 2021 trip to Iraq. So that's one thing that kind of caught my attention this morning, Debbie.
And Michael Birchfield, our producer, reminded us again about that interesting story that's been floating around on the news and also on social media. In the news and on social media is that rare Christmas star, that Bethlehem star that's going to be shining bright this year. So that's very interesting. So there's great news stories that really don't get the much needed attention. So if you have something that's on your mind or heart and you saw this news story and you're thinking, this really bothers me that we don't give it enough attention, now's the time to do it. So call in 833-288-3986 and share what news story caught your eye. Very important. What did you say about what were you saying?
About what?
Oh, I thought you typed me over something. Oh, that's Michael. Oh, Michael's typing over. I thought it was Jerry Michael. It's Monday. I'm slow.
Well, there's a kind of a regional story that I found actually disturbing, not surprisingly. And I would guess most people around the country and maybe around the world have heard of it now. There was this fine lady who owned a restaurant. I think it was somewhere in Orange County. And, the restrictions for COVID are changing almost by the hour here in our state. I saw somebody on the news last night say, it's all so confusing. And I thought that is a perfect way to sum it up, because from one hour to the next, you don't know where you can go, what you can do, when you have to wear your mask. Can you eat in? Can you eat out? Can you take out? All of this stuff. But it was, Debbie, you probably saw the story. This lady had a small restaurant, small business. It was a restaurant, and she's been struggling through this whole pandemic, and she was told to shut down. And she, lo and behold, she walked out of her restaurant one day, and in the parking lot 20 feet away, there were all these tents and picnic tables set up to feed a movie crew. Mm-hmm. And she's told that it's unsafe to be in her restaurant. This is outdoors. When she, 20 feet away, is told to shut her restaurant down, and they set this whole thing up. So we can talk about things like that. You guys, what's going on? What's in your mind? What's rolling around in your head or in your heart right now that you want to talk about, that you have seen or heard or read about in the news? 833-288-3986. Get on board early like Dora and the others have on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
More to life.
The church has 2,000 years of wisdom to share on what it takes to live life gracefully.
We're so overwhelmed by how much our faith has transformed our marriage and family especially. We want everyone to experience the incredible gift that the Catholic vision of life and love really is.
More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak. Tomorrow morning, 10 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The EWTN home video highlight for December is the EWTN Family Christmas Special. The choir of the Eternal Word Television Network performs classical Christmas carols with a special commentary by Father Joseph Mary Wolfe. Order your DVD or CD at EWTNRC.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
Hi, Take Two family. Jerry and I are so excited about the launch of Stand Tall, our new ministry designed just for you. Please visit StandTallToday.com and take a look at all the resources, devotionals, and services we have provided to assist you on your spiritual journey. Feeling stuck? Or maybe you feel like you're moving backwards? Let us help you take another look at life and make great strides toward being the person both you and God want you to be. Learn more at StandTallToday.com. Happy Advent to you. We're so glad you joined us on Take Two with with Jerry and Debbie. This is our In the News monthly show, so that if you have a news story you'd like to talk about, you'd like to explore and discuss, now is the time to do it. Don't wait till the end of the show. 833-288-3986. And to all our international friends of Take Two, you can dial country code 1-205-271-2985, and we will push you to the front of the line because you're calling from overseas, and so we don't want to make you wait. Real quickly, Jerry, if I may, I know we're going to get to some of the calls and some of the other news stories that really didn't make it to the headlines of mainstream media, but I just wanted to focus on Eucharistic adoration. So important. You know, we're talking, Jerry, about fasting and Advent sacrifices and everything that we can do to prepare for Christ's birth. Well, Eucharistic adoration, wow, it doesn't get any better than that. And EWTN has you covered. You're never alone. Come spend some time with our Lord and in the Blessed Sacrament. EWTN is streaming live Eucharistic adoration from the EWTN chapel every day, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. So all you got to do is visit EWTN.com/Catholicism/adoration. And I have taken part and viewed adoration through EWTN many times, and it has been most helpful. And it's a great time to be with our Lord. Virtually, but it works.
Virtually, indeed. Yeah. I mean, so many churches you can't get in to be with our Lord. I'm blessed here where I live. We have outdoor masses every day, and they have been at noon recently. And on First Fridays, there's about, the adoration goes on until 7 p.m. And then every Wednesday, they do a little bit of adoration as well. So I'm trying to take advantage of that. But yeah, Jesus is there. He's waiting for us. He's waiting to bless us. He's waiting to speak to us. He's waiting to show us his will and help us to carry that out. So please, especially if you can't make it to a church, go on to EWTN.com's perpetual adoration site there.
That's right. Lois and Mary just sent us a picture. A year ago today, we were in San Antonio, wrapping up the beautiful pilgrimage there. And they just sent us, Lois just sent us a picture. Thank you, Lois. It brings back such amazing memories. Do you remember we were eating outdoors? Remember we had that the final kind of lunch and saying goodbye to everybody? That was incredible. We hope to get back to Texas. We absolutely love San Antonio, Houston, Dallas area. You guys are awesome. You've been asking us for a long time to come to Texas. It's only because of the pandemic that things have gotten slowed up a bit, but hopefully in 2021.
Yep. Okay, it's in the news. You certainly have, even though you may try to avoid the news like I do, it's virtually impossible to not know most of what's going on. So if there's something going on in your area, maybe you want to talk about the COVID restrictions where you live, because they're certainly different from state to state and in different parts of the country. You can do that. Maybe you're a big sports fan and you're disappointed that your child is not able to participate in sports at this time of year. Anything going on in the news? 833-288-3986. Okay, let's go to Dallas. Speaking of Dallas, Debbie, Dora is first, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network, and a first-time caller. Hi, Dora.
Hi, Dora.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing
Great.
pretty
How
well.
How are you?
Hello?
Happy Advent.
Oh, happy Advent, yes. Okay, what I wanted to just bring up real quick is I was telling the guy who answered the phone is that, this deal with the election, the fraud that's going on, there's been a whole bunch, I'm talking thousands and thousands of people doing affidavits, people that actually worked the election and that saw things and so forth. And I was letting him know that, I don't even listen to the news here in America anymore. I listen to the news in the UK, Australia. I get on YouTube and I just listen to all kinds of news from other, outlets, because our mainstream media, it seems like they're not wanting to cover the fact that really, we talk about Biden being the president-elect. Well, it's not a said and done deal yet until the Electoral College has, chimed in. And that can't be chimed in until all the states have been certified. And the states can't be certified until, all certain things have been looked at, and certain state legislatures are actually trying to figure out, with all these affidavits, to look at them and listen, to them and see, try to follow, I guess they have to take it to court, but, before they do that, they have to determine, the legislature, if they're going to accept the certifications of some states that have been certified, because there's so much, question marks going on. And, it's just it's a whole lot of stuff that I'm thinking, wow, that's not even being said on our news. It just seems like everybody's just accepting the fact that, we have a new president. But I guess I'm saying we really don't just yet. We don't really know yet. So I don't know. That's just something that, I just keep on my mind, because I'm just kind of reading about certain things I read, and I just try to do research and not just accept what, the mainstream media tells you, because I just don't.
Sure,
I hear all kinds of other news. So,
well,
anyway,
you're right, Dora.
that's just something.
Yeah, and I think you've actually stated it pretty well. I was mentioning earlier about the confusion over coronavirus, at least in my state of California. One day it's this, the next hour it's this, the next day. Now we're going to be shut down for 3 weeks, which is going to lead, coincidentally, right up to Christmas. And things just change all the time. And I agree with you, depending on the news source you watch, there are some quote-unquote conservative outlets that are certainly championing the fact that the election is not over. There are international outlets like you're talking about. And then if you look at most of the mainstream media, especially even the local news, I was watching a local newscast the other day, and I think in one sentence, the announcer said these are, what did he say? He says, no evidence. These are bogus charges by Trump. Bogus. He used the same, negative thing to shoot it down about 3 times in the same sentence. So I just really think, Debbie, a lot of this runs along ideological lines, philosophical lines. And bottom line is, we really need to just keep on praying that, God's will be done. If God wishes to intervene, let's pray that he will in some way, whatever that way is, according to his will.
I just wanted to say real quickly, Dora, that, Jerry, I totally, agree with what you were sharing, but Dora brings up a really good point about picking different news sources, and that's how you establish what you're going to be informed about, and what the facts are based on that news source. It's very interesting, Dora and Jerry. I've noticed that especially this year, when you talk to even friends or family members, if you identify where they are deriving their news stories from, or the facts from, you get an understanding of how they are living in their world, if you will. It's very interesting. So if you have somebody that is only pulling from conservative news sources, you pretty much can understand, their line of thinking. Some people are, more progressive or liberal, whatever. I'm not really big on these labels, but you know what I'm talking about. It's very interesting. And so I think people are, instead of us really pursuing the facts and the truth and what it means for all of us, I think sometimes we get very comfortable in just pulling from what we know and what we're familiar with, and what quote unquote feels right to us, which isn't always the best thing. We really should be striving as Catholic Christians. We should be getting to the truth. That's what Scripture tells us, right? The truth will set us free. And I've said this to many people. Everybody's getting hyper focused on, well, what does this mean for the presidency? Are we going to have Biden? Is it going to be flipped back to Trump? What's going to happen? Are we going to have this, civil unrest and all this, horrible fighting in the streets? I look at it like this. Don't we want to get to the truth? Because for future elections, this is what determines, our free and fair elections, that every vote should count. I mean, that's what our country is based on. And I'm always thinking that way, but other people aren't. They're hyper-focused in a certain area. So it's very interesting how everybody's kind of picked their camps, if you will, and they're just going along with that, which I sometimes feel, I have to say, can be very destructive in getting to the truth. I'm a truth seeker. I love finding the truth. I should have been a lawyer. I'm telling you, I should have been, because I love research. I love doing that. And I just think we miss that sometimes. What do you think, Dora, real quickly? And then I want to hear what Jerry has to say, because I see him nodding his head. I think he's in agreement. Dora?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, and that's true that it depends on what particular way they're getting their news, or I'm like you, I like to see the truth, so I just want to know the truth. That's why I kind of look in different directions to see what's going on, because other people looking into us, they're going to see what they say, or they're going to say what they see, instead of just us trying to portray what we think it should be, to make us, America still look good. And I, for that reason, I volunteered this year to work at the election booth. And I thought, okay, this runs smooth, and it made me understand, because I knew it was going to be kind of crazy. So I said, wait, I want to know what it is. So I volunteered, and I went so I could learn it. I was trained, and I learned it on how it works and so forth, and, how one person walks in. Because before I used to just walk in and vote and sign, and, it just looked legit to me. But now I know how it all works in the back. And so now I'm thinking, okay, now I can understand it more. That was my way of trying to find the truth in all this, is, okay, how does it really work? Because without really knowing how it works, all you hear is people saying stuff. But if you know how it works, when they say stuff, you can put two and two together and say, okay, is that true? Or is that, kind of, turning it a little bit in whatever they want you to believe and so forth. But it's true. For me, I just want it to be correct going forward, because for me, America stands for freedom, and you really are not free unless your vote counts. You know what I'm saying? So I just want it to be true, and you're right, I'll accept anybody being president, but I want it to be a true election, like I want the real truth of what everybody voted. So, that's just my 2 cents on that.
No, once again, you have spoken very articulately on that, Dora. And I do, Debbie, I come back to what you said, and I do agree. This should be, and you said this too, Dora, it should be about the truth. The truth is real, and the truth matters. 2 + 2 is always 4. It can't be anything else. So there is truth and there is untruth. And I think, Debbie, getting back to another thing you said, I really believe everybody was pretty solid, pretty firm in their choice long before the election came up from ideological standpoints. You had, Trump supporters are very staunch. They're not going to waver. Biden supporters aren't going to waver. They talked about undecided voters, and I kind of scratched my head and I said, during this election, I don't know that there are that many undecided voters. It just seemed like there was just this rancor and this tension, but everybody was already decided regardless of the truth in many cases. So I'm with you, Dora. And as many outlets have said, if we don't straighten up this mess, then future elections, I don't know that we can ever count on having another free and fair one again. That's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
And then that just doesn't become America anymore. That's
right.
The way I feel.
True.
Okay.
But Dora, a lot of saints have said this, and a lot of very, intelligent people through the centuries have said that sometimes people will only realize that when it's too late. And that's unfortunate. And that's kind of human nature. People, the facts may be right in front of them, but they're unwilling to really adjust where they're at and their thinking, and to break down some of those fixed beliefs. And so then it becomes too late. And it's that's why I think it's so important that we get back to really intense prayer and fasting. I can't say it enough. So that we can break some of these strongholds and really get back to a God-centered society. If we can get back to that, I think we'd have a better shot at things. The truth being the truth, and not just people's opinions. And that's the other thing too. That's happening a lot. Have you noticed? And even on some of these cable news networks, it's all opinions. It amazes me. I don't understand how that they get away with that. Journalism is supposed to be, isn't it supposed to be, investigative facts and double checking things? It seems like people are just throwing around opinions, and that can be very dangerous. But Dora, you bring up some great points, and thank you for stepping up and volunteering and doing, to really finding out what actually happens, going through the whole election process and what it means to have ballots counted and everything. That's important. And you did that. You did that fine work. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for what you do.
Oh, thank you, Dora. Have a beautiful, beautiful day and the rest of the season of Advent for you and yours. We've got Jim on the line and others. Jim, hang on. We're going to get to you in just a minute. We would be remiss if we didn't mention today talking about freedom, free and fair elections, and the freedom of our country, this being Pearl Harbor Day. And Debbie, I know you join me in just giving a gigantic thank you to those who sacrificed their lives at Pearl Harbor, but in wars and battles before that, wars and battles and conflicts since then. You and I both have immediate family who have served in the military, and the freedoms that we enjoy aren't cheap. Okay, so we need to remember that.
That's right. People sacrificed. We have some open phone lines if you'd like to talk about the news, what's in the news in your local area or regional area that maybe didn't make it to the big headlines. We want to hear about it. That's what Take Two is all about, especially if it has something to that can relate to our Christianity. 833-288-3986. Fill up those last couple phone lines. We'd love to hear from you. We want a vibrant, robust discussion like we just had with Dora. It was wonderful. We want you to join us. 833-288-3986.
EWTN Radio brings you the Holy Rosary twice each day for over 25 years. Tune in every morning for Mother Angelica and every evening for Father Benedict Groeschel, only on EWTN Radio.
Hi, I'm Doug Keck. This is an EWTN Bookmark Brief. I just had the pleasure of speaking with Paul Kengor about his latest book, The Devil and Karl Marx, Communism's Long March into Death, Deception, and Infiltration, published by TAN, available through the EWTN Religious Catalog. Paul, tell us why you wrote this book and why it's important, do you think, today?
Doug, I've known about this dark side of Karl Marx for a long time, especially his writings about the devil. He wrote a poem, he said, "Thus heaven I forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell." Now, it's hard to know there if he's being autobiographical or not. In a sense, it is autobiographical.
Right, very good. The book is The Devil and Karl Marx by Paul Kengor, Communism's Long March into Death, Deception, and Infiltration. An interesting read. Check it out through our EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com. Look for the interview coming soon on the network and on the web. Thank you so much for stopping by. An EWTN Bookmark Brief. Thank you very much.
He was a pope, a saint, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
Pope St. Gregory I the Great is one of only 4 popes honored as the Great. Among his many achievements was sending missionaries across Northern Europe, especially St. Augustine of Canterbury, who brought Christ to the people of England. In a pun, Pope Gregory called the English people angels. He died in 604.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
I'm Gloria Purvis.
And I'm Deacon Harold. The Morning Glory team discusses the satisfaction and challenges among the recently ordained.
Tomorrow morning, 7 Eastern. Now back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Thank you so much for being with us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Michael Birchfield is our producer. Jeff Burson handles social media. So if you would like to make a comment on the EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page or YouTube channel where the video is streaming, you can do that. And Jeff has pulled some of those, and we'll be getting to them here shortly. Ryan Penny is answering your calls at 833-288-3986. We're talking about anything you want to talk about that's in the news here today or recently or maybe even a long time ago. 833-288-3986. Okay, Debbie and I are going to go to Jim next in...
Yep. Palm Desert.
Beautiful Palm Desert, California. Listening on Sirius XM 130. First time caller. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hello, Debbie. I'm absolutely new. I happen to be having breakfast, and I'm in the parking lot. We're restricted on where we can go here in Palm Desert. Seriously restricted, but you can always count on McDonald's, I guess, for a quick breakfast.
Right.
I wanted to call this morning about Honduras because a friend of mine built a church there that was totally wiped out by the last storm. I think it was last month. Iota was. there's been some terrific damage in Honduras, and a lot of people are seriously suffering. I think the main airport has like a foot of water in the terminal. That's totally, and this is all over the country. It's damaged so many buildings and homes that cannot be rebuilt. Once you've got a foot of water standing there, it messes up the roads. It messes up anything like sidewalks or any businesses you have. And it's totally been unreported in this country as far as I know, but it's very serious. You can find out about it certainly by going to Honduras floods on YouTube or Google. There's a lot of information there, but for some reason I haven't seen it anywhere in our media, anywhere. I only found out about it because a friend of mine has friends down there. He spent many, many years building a church that was wiped out. I can't give you a number to call to help. You have to find it yourself, but I'm sure you could find groups that need help down in Honduras. It's very hard to get help to them because the roads are all gone. I think there's one main road that is even kind of iffy right there. I wish I could tell you more, but frankly, it's about all I've got except what I've seen on YouTube and what I've seen in looking up the news in Google. And, of course, you have to be careful on that, but you can't just trust the pictures generally. They're pretty accurate. And I know my friend is just brokenhearted about what his friends are going through down in Honduras. Sorry I missed your last caller. That was an interesting discussion. Wish I could have gotten involved in that. But I just want to ask your listeners to check out and pray for the people in Honduras. More than anything, they need prayers, but beyond that, they need food and probably clothing and anything else. So, God bless you all.
Well, Jim, thank you for bringing this up because it is very much underreported. And I believe in our nation anyway. I've been in the media for over 40 years. I've worked in secular news, and I've done a whole lot of other things. And I think on one level, it's understandable that they're going to cover the things that are most pertinent to us right now. And maybe I mean, a mention of this or coverage of it would not have taken away from all of that. But I'm going to bet that the people of Honduras have other things on their mind than the U.S. election right now. And we should keep them in our minds and in our hearts. And so the coverage, I think, on our news, again, it's totally understandable because this is a biblical an election of biblical proportions, if you will. So it is important and should be covered around the clock. But I think, Debbie, there should be room to put something like this in there so that, we hear about it. A lot of the support goes undetected. You have Catholic Charities. You probably have the Knights of Columbus on the ground right there. So Jim is bringing something very important to our attention today.
Oh, I completely agree, Jim. Thank you so much for raising awareness on this. I was not aware of the details of this. I saw a quick kind of news blurb that came across. I have the app that shows things, but I really, you're right. There wasn't anything on the mainstream media. Let's face it, the news cycle has been dominated by, the election, post-election, COVID, and obviously so. I mean, those are things that are on people's minds, and it's right here, right now. But I agree with you. There's so many things that are really flying under the radar. Nobody's picking up on them. People are dying. I read another article in Japan about women that were committing suicide at a rapid rate because they were losing their jobs because of COVID and other things that were happening in Japan. I mean, and that never got reported either. And it's horrible because we're becoming I believe, in my personal opinion, just really out of touch of what's really happening, and we're getting fed the same thing over and over again, and sometimes that can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming in our minds, how we deal with things. That's why depression is going sky high. Who knows? But what do you think, Jim? I mean, we do our little part to bring, to raise awareness, and that's what we're doing. But that's the best we can do.
Yeah, and God bless you for that. But if you don't mind, I'd just like to say one thing about the media, the news media especially. It changed dramatically when it went to a commercially supported service. If you recall, back in the 60s, broadcast networks had a news service that was really supported by the rest of the programming in the network, and they were not expected to make money. And that was that was an important factor in the way the businesses are run and in the way the news is reported, because it didn't. There were stories that were not that critical and not that contentious, and you didn't always have to show burning buildings and dying people. You could talk about good news even, but when you have to make money, you have to keep viewers on the screen, and they're so carefully followed now in all media, but particularly in television. Every second, the number of eyeballs are being counted, and it affects the rates that your company brings in, how much money is available to report the news. So it's inherently built into the system now that news that's outrageous and anger building and frustrating and creates emotional response so that people stay and get more and more frustrated. It builds eyeballs and ratings, and you make more and more money. But if you start focusing on floods in distant lands or people who are doing good things, it's very rare. The good news on most network programs only comes at the end when they say goodbye. And it's not that well covered anyway. So I think what we need to do is find a way to get money out of the news. We've got to find a way to support the news services without competitive services for the most eyeballs, so that we can look at programs, we can look at news, and we can report it basically based on the value of the information that we're giving. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't want to go on and on about it. I just told about Honduras, but that's my 2 cents on news.
Well, Jim, that's a very full 2 cents worth right there. And actually, as you were talking previously, among the notes that I was making to reply to you was it's what sells. It's what sells. There's a saying in media, if it bleeds, it leads. It's what sells. They obviously have to they have to pay for their services and so forth. So and they get the advertisers, and advertisers are going to advertise on the news outlets that they feel are in keeping with their own principles and so forth. So I agree. You've hit it right on the head here. It's all about getting eyeballs. And if there was a way to put some kind of a news source together where it wasn't ideologically driven by money and things like that, I think that would be a fantastic thing.
In a perfect world.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it'll come around again, but I don't see how. Probably not in my lifetime.
Jim, you're awesome. We so appreciate you calling in and sharing this story with us so that our listeners, we already got some text messages coming in. They're going to look up the story. People want to help. They want to pray for, and they want to do whatever they can, and they want to see if, what churches are involved in helping these fine folks in Honduras try to recover from this. So, Jim, thank you so much in beautiful Palm Desert, California.
Yeah, enjoy that sausage McMuffin with eggs that you got with contactless delivery, I'm sure. So thanks, Jim. You're a good man. Please, you're a first-time caller today, but you never will be again. But we hope that you are a caller again in the future. You are part of the Take Two with Jerry and Debbie family. Thanks, Jim. Have a blessed day.
Happy Advent.
About things that are... Yeah, happy Advent. In the news today, once a month, we open the phone lines to you to comment on whatever is going on in the news that is of interest to you or that you think would be of interest to all of us. And the number is 833-288-3986.
Can I just say one thing real quickly? This is how my pea brain works, okay? It's mind-blowing to me. I was telling my sister the other night, every time you turn on the news, they say another $100 million has come in for this, election runoff race. Another $100 million was poured into Georgia. Another $100 million here, $100 million there. I said to my sister, I said, with all these hundreds of millions, we could have helped everybody in our country and all the other countries. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's got to be a way to do these elections and to all this, and not have this, large amounts of millions pour in for one particular race when we can be helping, an election race, when we can be helping, a whole country. It makes no sense to me. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm with you all the way. I think there should be caps on how much money can be contributed, where the money can be contributed from, because most of the money going into Georgia right now, say going into Georgia, because it's going from outside of Georgia. And then term limits. I think if we had term limits and a cap on how much money could be raised and spent, Debbie, the landscape of the government in the United States of America would be changed overnight with just those two things. Term limits. The president has one. I don't think the Founding Fathers ever foresaw a career politician, quote unquote. I mean, there was a day when, a farmer in the Midwest would say, you know what, I think I can make a difference for 4 years as the mayor of the city. And he would go be mayor. And when it was all done, he'd say, thank you all, had a great time, got to go back to farming, or whatever the analogy might be.
True service to the country.
True service, yeah. And really, it flowed from his heart. I want to make a positive difference.
Okay, I got a great idea. You run for the presidency, and I'll be your vice president, okay?
Okay. Well, we know we'll have a few thousand votes from the Take Two family.
That's right. That's it. That's all we'll have.
We're going to have to grow the Take Two family.
What? We're going to have to grow it?
We have to grow the family, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Or, hey, or find a nice island somewhere. We'll start our own little Take Two United States. Anyway, just kidding, folks. You got to have a sense of humor. Let's hear what Stanley has to say. Stanley's in Connecticut and on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Stanley. Happy Advent to you.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about how it seems like it's just the whole political atmosphere, all this vitriol, it's so dominating. Trump, Biden, conservative, liberal, and it's just kind of made me disenchanted in the whole political process. I'll always stand by my faith, and I'll always vote with those that'll, that most represent what our faith does. But in general, it's just difficult. I mean, if you're a conservative, sometimes you're looked at like you're the most horrible person in the world. And this country just seems so divided. I just wonder if anything will bring it back together.
I would just like to say...
how do we bring that about?
God. God. Absolutely. The answer is God. The problem is we've lost what it means to be a human being, what it means to be here on earth. As Christians, we were made to know, love, and serve God. So God has to be at the center. We've lost it. Everybody's playing their own little mini gods, their mini everything, making their own rules, what works for them, what works for their family. I mean, look at it. You can go to any family, Stanley. I've done religious education for many years, and I can sit with a family, and within 5 minutes, I can figure out what tenets of the faith, what principles of the faith they adhere to, and which ones they disregard, because it's based on their own dynamic and what they encounter on a regular basis. And people have compromised. And that's why I've said this a million times. We're either authentically Catholic or we are not. That's my opinion. We're either authentically Catholic or we're not. It's not this liberal, conservative, this and that, Catholic. We are either authentically 100% Catholic or we are not. And that's in my opinion, that's the problem. And unfortunately, the church hasn't been very united in this. And there's been some division there, and that creates more confusion for the faithful. So here we've got like this bit of a mess happening. What do you think, Jerry? You know where I'm going with this. You know how passionate I feel about it.
Yeah, well, Stanley, thanks. You really bring up a great point. By the way, just out of curiosity, I looked up vitriol online. I had a general sense. I knew what it meant. Yeah, well, it means cruel and bitter criticism, but it also it means sulfuric acid. It's like you're throwing vitriol in someone's face as if to want to do serious damage or even kill them. And I think that's kind of where we are as a society.
Accurate. I mean,
yeah. Go ahead, Stanley.
No, I was just going to say that a sulfuric acid, that seems pretty accurate sometimes with all that's thrown around lately.
Yeah, and I think it gets down to, I believe what Debbie was saying wholeheartedly. God has been booted out, and when God is kicked out, guess who's coming to dinner? Guess who's coming in? Satan is going to have his way. And I think at the foundation of this, in my humble opinion, is the devaluation of persons, of the human person. Abortion is the foundation of that. We now have, and have had for quite some time, the extermination of elderly people in some parts of the world. When we devalue the human person so much as to kill the most vulnerable, well, why won't we walk up to someone who's, strong and able-bodied and punch them in the face on the street, and throw all kinds of vitriol, whether it's words or, whatever it is, at them. So we have a society that is being largely, I think, propelled by the fact that we don't understand who and what the human person is, created in the image and likeness of God. So, Debbie, you're right. We've got to get back to an understanding of God and his role in all of this, and then an appreciation of the human person that God created.
Amen to that. Preach it, brother. This is why I want you to be president, and I'll be your vice president. What do you think, Stanley?
If that ever happens, you have my vote.
Thank you, Stanley. We've got one vote, Jerry.
Yeah, but the term limit would be about a week.
Yeah. But it's true, though. Stanley, what Jerry was saying is spot on, because people want to label. They want to label you. I've had emails where people have actually said to me, are you a conservative? Are you a liberal? I'm authentically Catholic. That's what I try to be. I mean, this idea of labeling, because now we have a person we can view as our enemy. Now we have somebody that's different from us. There's something really wrong with that. And as Catholic Christians, we've got to come together and unite as being authentically Christian. And, and that will transform a culture. That will transform a society. What do you think?
I completely agree. Because even when I identify as a Catholic, obviously, and sometimes when the response to that is something along the lines of, well, I'm not going to get into specific, but insert here and then phobe, just because I'm opposed to lifestyles that aren't traditional, that don't agree with our faith, so to speak. But I think that what's going on also is that, even like you mentioned, we have to identify as Catholics first and foremost, but that in itself is a label. And then, that tells people that
True.
That you're racist, you're this. I could go on, but when that's truly not the case. But unfortunately, that's what mainstream society is leading towards, I think.
Right. And may I just add one other thing? That the reason why we as Christians or Catholics have received a negative, negative comments about who we are is because of really lame catechesis. I have to tell you, Stanley, there is horrible catechesis out there being spewed all over the faithful because of somebody's own personal agenda. If we went back to the catechism, if we went back to real authentic church teaching, we will see that our church is amazing, is the truth. It's the way that we should try to align our lives, and it's incredible. But because of lame catechesis, this is what we have. We have a lot of people walking around saying that they are Christian, and they're not really acting Christian. So I just have to say that's kind of one of my things that really get me. Right.
Thank you, Stanley. God bless you. A happy Advent to you and yours, and we hope that we'll hear from you again on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Also, another great program, folks, that comes on a little bit before hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo. Monday through Friday, Teresa and her guests share their Catholic perspectives on the day's news and newsmakers. So we do this for you once a month. You get it every day, a look at the news and things going on Catholic Connection, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on many of these same EWTN stations.
Yay, I love Teresa. She does such a great job. Okay, Stanley, thank you so much. Call anytime. A wonderful discussion. Call anytime. You can even email us if you want to keep the conversation going. Take2@EWTN.com. Jerry and I love to just have these really, really great discussions so we can learn something and walk away a little bit changed, a little bit closer to God. Let's hear what Harold has to say in Oakville, Ontario, listening on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Harold. Thank you so much for waiting. You got our Virtual Patience Award today. And welcome. Happy Advent to you.
Happy Advent to you as well. And first of all, I wanted to thank you for welcoming me here as a non-American, but a fellow Catholic brother. I just kind of wanted to chime in first, thank you, and then we pray for your mission. I mean, I think it's a very important one, and I think especially these days, a few minutes ago, I think it was you, Debbie. I think you were just spot on when you were talking about, it was just more of a question, I guess, actually, whether or not, we're as a society, as the world, really, if we are pursuing truth. I know we're talking about politics and the election and so on, and we're very interested. And I think it was mentioned, too, this election was of biblical proportions. I think that's not an overstatement. A lot of us are worried about what's happening in their country from a moral standpoint, from the fact that, an entire civilization can be lost on the lack of pursuit of truth. And also what comes out of that, I think, too, is that I think what's happening with a lot of us, ordinary people is that when we talk about, politicians, institutions, even news media and so on, there's a lack of credibility. Credibility has been lost. I think part of it was because, the pursuit of truth is not there. But, as many say, society goes the way the church goes. So if the moral backbone is not there, and I think that we should pray. I think we need to be honest with ourselves within our church community as Catholics. And perhaps, to realize to make an act of contrition, of penance, that maybe we've been very passive. We haven't been taking our faith seriously, and we haven't really kind of put even our leaders' feet to the fire as well. I go back to, I think one of you was mentioning, we talk about Pearl Harbor and places, times like this when, people fought for freedom. What about our own heroes, our own martyrs that, died for their faith? And when we look at cardinals like Tobin, I think his name is, or others, I mean, countless others that publicly, incredibly, essentially are either vague or totally opposed to what one would think is clear Catholic teaching. I think we should be more vocal about that, humbly, respectfully, and so on, but I think we should name it, and I think this is the time to do it. I think people are confused. They look at institutions, and their institutions are not pursuing truth. They look at political leaders; it's divisive, and they look at our church, our shepherds, and our shepherds, by and large. And I think it has to be true. Said, by and large, not all of them, yes. But a good bulk of them are covering things up, are not being truthful, are being vague about the Catholic teachings of the Church, universal, things that people have died for.
Harold, I'm going to jump in. Forgive me, Harold, brother in Christ. We're down to about 30 seconds before we hear the closing music. And Debbie just typed over a note to me that I was thinking in my own mind. You are spot on. We are living through a time of, I think, great confusion. I think we're seeing a catastrophe, quite honestly, in some of the hierarchies around the world. My mind goes back to the time of the Reformation, and St. John Fisher was the only bishop in England who stood up to King Henry VIII. And so that's not to say that there aren't more bishops in our country that do that, but we need to pray. We need to pray for a spirit of courage, even a spirit of accepting martyrdom on the part of our priests, our bishops, our cardinals, our pope, because Debbie Debbie, to stand up for the truth in a very, very solid and visible way today could be inviting such a thing as that.
Absolutely. Harold, spot on. Thank you so much. We couldn't get to Mark and Alan. Mark, if you want to email us, you have something to say about labels, we'd love to hear about it. Take2@EWTN.com. Tomorrow we're talking about if you could have dinner with a saint. Which one would it have been? Which saint would you have liked to have been with at dinner? Okay, this comes from Debbie from our Indiana, from Inspired by Faith Book Club. We can't wait to, I've got my saint picked out that I would have loved to have had dinner with. Jerry?
I'll bet he's Italian, or she's Italian.
He is.
So let's talk about that tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day.
Dr. Ragerendi, making your parenting more fit, making your kids have less fits, and making your husband wear clothes that